Hi everyone, my name is Jake Rastberger. Really excited to get to talk to you about simulation-based IRTs. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Um, Super novel concept. Let's use more AI. But on a more serious note, I think it's really interesting to see. Hey, can we use this new toolkit that we have in our belt as data scientists to kind of ask the question? Can we use AI to figure out what a question tells us about you as a student if you can get it right? So not every question is made the same. If there's a really difficult or really hard question, everyone would either get it right or get it wrong. And I wouldn't know much about, the total distribution of students out there and where they fall on the ability of understanding the concept I'm testing them on. So we need to ask, a bunch of different students, a bunch of different questions to figure out, does this question tell me that you're a really high ability student if you get it right, or where on the spectrum do you lie? And figuring all this out is really, really hard, right? You have big companies that will have thousands of students over months of time to take different questions and different tests. It takes a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to get this done. So hopefully, again, we can use generative AI to either seriously reduce the number of students who have to take these questions to get the IRT scores, or potentially even just figure it out all without a student ever taking it. You know, and I guess you're probably thinking to yourself, hey Jake, I haven't done this before, but there are people out there who've told me that they use these LLMs to get take the test for them, and they always get 100. And so yes, AI is pretty annoyingly good at taking tests, so we'll have to walk through how we got it to not always get a 100. So really quickly, just jumping into what is IRT. There's three different parameters that you can measure in an IRT model. You have difficulty, which is what's the inflection point. So where's the 50-50 chance that a student will get a question right or wrong based on their ability? You can see that here. Then there's the difficulty. So how steep is the curve? Is it, there's a nice smooth transition, or is it really, really steep where, if you're on one side of the curve, you almost have a 0% chance of getting it right. And if you're on the other side, you have almost 100% chance of getting it right, and everywhere in between. And then also for multiple choice questions, there's this, concept of guessing where, sometimes you just fell out C, didn't actually know the right answer, but you got it right anyways. The other thing is the ability scores are measured from -3 to +3, where -3 is you just have no idea what's going on at all the way up to +3, where you literally wrote the book on this concept and would get everything right. So again, this is a serious problem. We need to understand, as educators, or educators really need to understand, what do my students know about the concepts that I'm trying to teach them? And it's great when you can get access to those things, but they take a lot of time, money, and energy. Sometimes you're in a small program where you wouldn't even have the ability to do this because you just don't have enough students, don't have enough money, or it's a totally new concept, where you just don't have the data yet to figure out those parameters. So it's a tough problem that would be really great to solve using something that could just, like an AI, just take it over and over and over again, never complain, and figure out what these IRT curves are. But we do have this problem of, like, oh yeah, you are right, where these LLMs, just telling them to be bad at a test won't always get you the results that you're looking for. So we'll kind of walk through how we solve that. Cool. So this is the high level pipeline. We'll just go through it really quickly, and then we'll dive a little deeper into each of these sections a little later. But basically, we have a FCI, which is just a test that's really well studied. Lots of students have taken it. People have created these IRT scores for this test, so we can kind of measure ourselves against real students. Basically, it's just a physics test. I only selected 5 of these questions just to kind of limit the compute and time that it takes, but I did spread them across the different concepts that are in the test. Then, to get out of this, LLM always getting it right, we kind of do this funny Clim translation where, we turn the concepts that in English into a different language that the LLM can't use its training data to understand and always get right. We did measure 7 different ability scores, or simulate 7 different ability scores from -3 up to 3. The examinee was this Quinn model, and then we used the simulation to generate the IRT curves. So this is just an example of the actual GLIM question for one of these, where it's, hey, it's a physics question. You have two different objects. One weighs twice as much as the other. If you drop them at the same point, at the same time, would, would one fall faster than the other, basically? And this is just kind of the silly translation that we used. Right. So for what the LLM actually saw is it would get this crazy translation that it doesn't understand how to answer, and then based off of a distribution, it would get some notes. So it would either never get the notes, or always get the notes, depending on if it was a -3 or 3, and the kind of varying distribution of notes in between. Then it also was this misconception concept. So the questions that were being asked on this test had misconceptions tied to them that the students might have. And so a lower ability score student had a much higher probability of getting a misconception than the higher ability score students. And then to add even a little bit more randomness into this, we made the LLMs take those notes and misconceptions and rephrase them into their own words. So lower ability score LLM had a much higher temperature, so the notes were really garbled and confusing to kind of simulate, if you were a student who maybe remembered the concept kind of, but not exactly. This is kind of getting at that where you might know what's going on, but can't quite remember the exact wording. And now you're looking at the question, you kind of have to parse your way through it. So it makes it a lot harder for the lower ability score students to get it right if they do get the notes. Okay, so we had three different models that we would run all this through. We had notes only dropout, so there was no temperature, temperature only, so you always got the notes, and then so a combined one where we use temperature and note dropout. So here's the results. The curves are kind of interesting to me. They're not all the same, which I was really worried about when I first started this. And they also, kind of sort of match it. They're not perfect, but I think with some fine tuning, it might get there. And so that's kind of the main takeaway I had was, hey, it's not perfect, but I think the concept might be proven out that you could use this type of pipeline with some time and effort to get really close or potentially, almost there on these IRT curves. I do want to call out two of the questions I did really, really poorly on. I think this had to do with the answer choices were really, really similar for one of the questions, which confused the model, I think. And then the other one had to have like very exact wording to get it right. And so I think the temperature was really messing it up. Um, but definitely some areas to probably improve upon. So I won't drain this too much, but these are just kind of the results, the RSMEs for discrimination and difficulty. You can see the combined score 1, or the combined model 1. And then the big thing is, obviously everyone's doing AI all over the place. How this is different is it's not using any fine tuning. So we're not taking some big model and training it to be a lower ability score or higher ability score. And we're also not using any previous IRT data. So you could use this for these smaller niche subjects or brand new subjects, potentially where you don't already have that IRT score to kind of train your models on as a starting point. So limitations in future work, I only used one model to kind of look at this. There might be a better model out there that might perform, get the IRT scores a little bit better matched up. We could also simulate more stuff. The dropout curve was linear, so just a linear mapping from -3 to 3. Maybe like a sigmoid function would be better, or even using like text feature driven calibration. So, does the question sound like it's really hard, and then kind of tweak, the how much you get the notes or get the misconceptions based off of that. So overall, the big takeaway here is, we made a test that even AI couldn't figure out through this funny kind of GLIM translation thing, and then without any fine tuning on the model point of view, so it wasn't, something that took forever to do, without any prior IRT data and without any actual students. I think we got kind of sort of close. We got some curves that looked realistic. And so I think the proof of concept is confirmed, and I'd love for someone to pick up the baton and carry this a little bit further.